Microbrands. Some are landfill with a logo, others genuinely brilliant. Here's a roundup of the ones that have recently caught my eye, some weird, most wonderful, and maybe all worryingly good for the price. Let's get into it. Sweden, the land of functional furniture, politely grey cavernous estate cars, and music apps that apologise when you skip a song. It's a nation that builds for safety first, and style sometimes. Then along came Alto, a microbrand that either clearly didn't get the memo, or jumped in their Koenigsegg, opened a can of Surströmming and did burnouts on it for fun. Alto was founded by watch enthusiast and collector Pierre Stromback, a name I've almost certainly pronounced in a way that would disappoint even the Saab 900 Turbo Owners Club. With a background in architecture and civil engineering, he did what any sane person would do, abandon structural integrity for the glamorous world of watch nerds. The result? Watches that looked like they were sketched during a rocking chair structural stress test and still came out looking cooler than 8-year-old you's best spirograph creation. Take the Arvet, a 38mm Garda watch with all the specs you beg for. Sapphire sandwich, 100 metres water resistance, and the Miyota 9039. The dial is decorated by geometric markers inspired by the Rouleau triangle, a shape best known for its cameo in the Wankel rotary engine. Because, of course, nothing says daily driver like a tribute to the world's most temperamental piston design. The dial features guilloche pattern that borders on compulsive. Like someone couldn't stop drafting CAD files at 3 AM. And flip the watch over and it only gets more unhinged. The rotor, yes, it's loomed because it looks cool. Keeps the Wankel tribute alive by spinning in a way that mimics a rotary engine cross-section. And after a day or two, you can claim to have a rotary engine with more miles on the dial than any Mazda RX-8 ever got to. Finally, a satisfying Wankel. But it doesn't stop there. The Timescope, a 39.4mm dress watch that pays tribute to our oldest act of rebellion, staring up at the sky and demanding answers. Every element nods to the telescope, not the glossy sci-fi kind, but the cold, brass instruments that rewrote our place in the universe. The outer track and cardinal numbers echo the reticles found in an ocular lens, precision markings for measuring stars, or, perhaps, our own insignificance. The dial itself is where it gets quietly profound. You get two choices, aventurine, flecked like a night sky scrubbed clean by winter, or meteorite, actual space rock that had the decency to crash land on Earth. Both options speak to that ancient itch in the human psyche, the need to look up, to know more, to get closer. It's not just a watch, it's a calibrated whisper from the cosmos, conveniently sized to fit under a cuff. And with prices for both watches starting at under £150, it's like building a rocket out of tinfoil and hope and still managing to break orbit. Ubik, a name that sounds like a meme coin your cousin swears is going to the moon right before it is rug pulled so hard it rips a hole in your bank account. But unlike your crypto portfolio, Ubik is actually adding value to the watch world in its own special, slightly bonkers way. Ubik is a young microbrand doing things differently. And I don't mean mildly quirky indices or edgy Kickstarter font differently. I mean, take your two favourite colours, boil them in battery acid, crank up the saturation until your screen weeps, and slap that glorious chaos onto a dial and bezel kind of differently. And against all odds and logic, and maybe because of it, it works spectacularly. And what's more, the name, Ubik, short for ubiquitous, meaning widespread and ever-present, which is deliciously ironic for a brand making watches so original and definitely off-centre, they're out here showing up Swatch's creative direction team at their own game. Take the Jewel Series 1, a watch that looks like someone trapped a vintage diver and a modern tech startup in a blender, then actually had the guts to produce the results. It's 39mm of dual-time absurdity, where the bezel is bidirectional and bicolour, and frankly, bi-sane. Everything about it screams design school meltdown in the best possible way. Like an art student finally snapped, but this time in a good way. And yet, the build looks sharp, the specs are solid, and the whole thing has that chunky, opposing confidence dipped in multicoloured sherbet. Then there's the Trek, a 38mm titanium field watch that walked into a boring field watch meeting, rolled its eyes and left immediately. You get a dial so deep and so 3D you could lose a weekend in it. Broad luminous hands and colours applied with the subtlety of a toddler on a sugar high. It's light, legible, but somehow weirdly refined. The Dual Series 1 sits at just under £500, while the Trek, currently on pre-order for less than £200, doesn't exactly scream budget bargain, but sometimes not chasing the value first crowd means you end up with something genuinely worth your time. We survived the Apple Watch era. Now, without even meaning to, Ubik might have quietly birthed the Google Watch. And honestly, it feels like progress. Most people would probably respond to redundancy during maternity leave by crying into a cushion and Googling jobs you can do in pyjamas. Susan Galvvin, however, started a watch brand. Because, of course she did. Finnish by birth, Tag Heuer and Omega trained, and now quietly assembling timepieces and baby changing units in Sydney while the rest of us can barely assemble dinner. This is Galvvin Watch Company. Independent, self-funded, and built with a kind of calm defiance that makes you feel deeply inadequate. While some other microbrands are busy repurposing AliExpress renders and pretending it's design language, Galvvin is over here actually doing the work, sketching, prototyping, assembling, by hand, in Australia, like a mad woman with skill and taste. Her aesthetic? Clean, purposeful, and unbothered by trends. No fluff, no fake story arcs, no marketing buzzwords about heritage or DNA, just thoughtful design, precision parts, and a stubborn belief that good watches shouldn't require a Swiss postcode or a second mortgage. Oh, and she's crowdfunded the whole thing, over $125,000 in 60 days, which is either inspiring or deeply upsetting, depending on how your own personal projects are going, and especially if your personal project includes crowdfunding £40 for postage on watches you're giving away and failing spectacularly. Galvvin's already 3 models deep, each named in Finnish and each ready to be violently mispronounced by some silly northerner from England who still says water instead of water, but let's have a go anyway. There's the Alto, meaning the initial. Quite fitting for the first watch in the lineup, a clean 3-hander that comes in white or Galvvin's now signature lilac, with blued hands and the kind of detailing expected from such an esteemed watchmaker. Then we have the Suvi, Finnish for summer, a barrel-shaped dress watch with guilloche so pretty it probably shouldn't be left alone with your dad's macho Breitling. And finally, the Lomu, meaning flame or blaze. A dressy but sporty Garda piece that feels like Galvvin's design language has fully formed and finally hitting its stride. It's confident, refined and suspiciously tasteful for something emerging from a country where the national haircut is the mullet and full sentences are built exclusively out of swearing and casual threats. Lomu might mean flame, but it's the colours that really burn into your brain. 6 guilloche style dials that shimmer like someone fed the northern lights through a kaleidoscope. There's icy blue, forest green, deep lilac, silvery frost, navy and black, plus a tuxedo variant with a black outer ring for those who like their watches dressed for dinner. Picking a favourite feels like choosing your favourite child. If all your children didn't scream the house down and argue like cats and dogs. Back to school in 1 month. Trust me, I'm counting. Specs wise, it's a tight 38mm brushed steel, 11.6mm thick, a Miyota 9015 ticking away inside, 100 metres water resistance and a screw down crown with luminous filling, because, apparently, Susan refuses to phone in anything. The slightly inverted lug bevels are a nod to her past work and frankly, they're lush. Like somebody finally remembered sporty watches can also be sexy. So that's Galvvin, a one-woman wristwatch powerhouse operating out of Sydney with a baby on one hip and a loop on the other, making the rest of us look like we've just wasted our lives watching YouTube shorts and pretending it's research. If you want flashy branding, made-up heritage, and a logo that looks like it belongs on a protein powder tub, look elsewhere. But if you want a watch made by someone who actually knows what they're doing and doesn't feel the need to shout about it, then Galvvin's quietly waiting, probably building another watch while you're still deciding on the dial colour. Maybe it's the designer in me, but a watch is never just a watch. Branding, visuals, the whole aesthetic universe, it all matters. It sets the tone, builds the hype, and stops the launch from feeling like it was cobbled together in Microsoft Paint. So when a microbrand nails its identity before the first watch even drops, that's when I start paying attention. But don't let the fresh face fool you. Vostra aren't amateurs. Not really. They're the mischievous, more affordable younger sibling of RZE, a microbrand that's already carved out a reputation for doing things properly. So while Vostra might look like the new kid on the block, they've got family history of not screwing things up, always a good start. Vostra isn't here to change the game. They're here to play it in gold loafers and paisley shirts with a cigarette holder in one hand and a martini in the other. This is a brand born out of the Populux era, that glorious post-war time where everything from your fridge to your furniture came with tail fins and atomic optimism. Why should your wrist be any different? Their whole ethos? Make the everyday feel extraordinary, and make the extraordinary feel like it came with a user manual and a matching 12-inch vinyl. It's nostalgia without the sepia filter, vivid, shiny, and just a little bit smug. And crucially, Vostra isn't trying to guilt-trip you into Swiss heritage or limited edition angst. They're just making fun, inspired watches that look like they've arrived straight from a 1960s department store window, minus the asbestos and casual sexism. Whether you're a die-hard collector or someone who just wants their watch to spark joy without needing a 7-part YouTube explainer series, Vostra's got you covered. Enter the Vector, Vostra's debut chronograph and an absolute masterclass in how to do retro without looking like the magazines you raided from your uncle's special drawer. It's got all the styling cues of a 1960s pit lane, minus the oil stains and aggressive chain smoking. At 40mm wide, 13mm thick and a tidy 47mm lug to lug, the case hits that sweet spot between modern wearability and vintage proportions. You get 100 metres of water resistance, a sapphire crystal and a screw-down crown. Inside, there's a VK63 mecha quartz movement keeping things snappy without the existential dread of a full mechanical service bill. There's a satisfying matte texture to the dial, like the surface of a laminate worktop or the casing of a rotary phone. With thick indices and baton hands coated in superluminova, in case your next blackout is more Studio 54 than Civil Defence Drill. And while most brands spend years finding one colour that vaguely works, Vostra came out swinging with 3. Atomic blue, electric yellow and gamma grey. One looks like it's powered by plutonium, one looked like it escaped a 1960s space race poster, and the other looks like it could file your taxes on paper without the need for a calculator. Choose wisely. But the real flex? That brushed flat link bracelet. All the industrial charm of something your dad used to wear on the beach, and the only part of his skin not doused in harmful UV rays. The Vector isn't here to be your family heirloom. It's here to make your other watches look like they're stuck on a spreadsheet, and frankly, we need more of that. Nizumi is one of those microbrands you've definitely seen around, probably while pretending not to browse watches during a Teams meeting. They've been quietly causing a stir for a few years now, and while this isn't a list of fresh out of the box newcomers, it is a list of what's currently living rent-free in my head. And right now, Nizumi is absolutely smashing it. They also happen to be the third microbrand here with Nordic roots, and the second one from Sweden, which, yes, is starting to look suspiciously like a covert PR push from the Scandinavian Investment Board. But I promise, I don't own shares in IKEA. Yet. Nizumi Studios, a Swedish brand named after a Japanese rodent. Yes, seriously. Run by a petrolhead denim designer who woke up one day and chose watches. Because apparently, vintage cars, premium jeans and motorsport photography wasn't quite enough of a flex. Founder, David Campo, launched the brand in 2015 with the Voiture. He's taken a 60s racing chronograph, but without the cracked acrylic and the residual stains in the seats from 6 previous owners. Nizumi watches have that kind of design that feels deliberate, like every line, font and bevel had to earn its place. There's a sharpness to them, a confidence, not shouting for attention, just calmly proving they deserve it. And they're assembled in Germany, assumedly because Sweden's too polite to call itself a perfectionist. The brand has range, edge and taste, which frankly makes the rest of us look lazy. Multiple ranges, all quintessentially Nizumi, sharing the same design language soaked in 1960s motorsport charm, dressed in muted colours and warm sepia tones. The dials strike that perfect balance, detailed enough to keep you interested, but not so busy you'd need an engineer's degree to read them. And my top pick, still the Tonnerre, a 38mm VK68 Mecha Quartz chronograph named after the French word for thunder, subtle, purposeful and built with tool watch functionality in mind. Its telemeter scale measures distances to visible or audible events, perfect for timing actual storms without having to get the US state of Mississippi involved in the action. Finally. The dial comes in 3 muted sepia tone colourways with that typically Nizumi nod to 1960s motorsport cool, with brushed hands and indices coated in grade X1 Swiss Superluminova for crisp legibility. A double dome sapphire crystal with internal anti-reflective coating that keeps that pretty dial clear and sharp. This watch is a study in quiet confidence. No frills, no flash, just a classic style and solid utility wrapped up in a tidy package. And when that special edition with the crazy coloured dial makes an appearance, crazy in a subdued Nizumi way, well, it's like thunder with a wink. And at £320 for a watch this polished and timeless, sure, it's a quartz, and yes, you could probably find flashier specs on AliExpress, but not every watch in your collection needs to be a homage simply because it offers better value. Sometimes, you just want something that's simple, but done right. Nizumi is the kind of brand that makes you wonder why everyone else is still stuck on the basics. Quietly brilliant and refreshingly unpretentious. Exactly how good watches should be. We've just wrapped up our first Fully Lumed member giveaway, and the watch is on its way to a new wrist. Hit the join button or the link in the description. Members get the chance to win multiple watches every month, as well as exclusive content, early access videos and the whole shebang. Not your thing? No problem. Our 5,000 subscriber giveaway is nearly here. Click the link to enter. The next prize is locked in. It's very cool. And no, I'm not telling you what it is yet. Oh, and whilst I have you, a massive shout out to a new channel on the block, Microbrand Watch. Dave is new, but I'm already a fan. So please give him a watch and maybe a sub to help him out. Thanks. Let's get back to the video. Cork-based microbrand Martin Design, the brainchild of Slovakian creative and watch lover Martin, is probably the most successful Irish-Slovakian collaboration since a Batislavan bar drinker discovered Guinness and decided to use it in his Slivovitz chaser. Martin Design is the kind of microbrand that sneaks up on you, like the quiet kid in the class who stays under the radar, says nothing for weeks, then out of nowhere drops a flawless essay that leaves everyone else scrambling. They claim to blend style, precision and functionality with eloquent design and surprising quality, all the while staying suspiciously affordable. It sounds like marketing nonsense until you actually see the watches and realise they might just be telling the truth. The Supernatural is like a modern twist on a classic fairy tale, a 40mm dress watch with sleek, contemporary case proportions, but rocking a regulator module movement that splits the hands across the dial like some Renaissance fair for watch nerds. The dial itself is a layered masterpiece, a bead-blasted stainless steel canvas playing host to two off-centre subdials, one for a 24-hour display, the other a discrete seconds counter, and a large central minute hand stalking the outer track like it owns the place. The lineup arrives like a Celtic Pantheon on your wrist, each watch named after a different deity, complete with a little nameplate on the dial to remind you it's not just another bland timepiece. You've got the Cataris, the god of war, Tanaros, the god of thunder, Alunus, the god of healing, and my personal favourite, the Triskel. She's the mother goddess, decked out with a Triskel pattern symbolising earth, water and sky. Basically, the original multitasker mother before mums had to do the shopping, the ironing and drive us around like they're a taxi service. It looks like something that should cost a small fortune. Sapphire sandwich, unique design, high-end strap options, but it's hanging out comfortably in the low 400s. How? That regulator module is built on a Miyota 8000 series movement. Yes, it's a low beat, but it's got hacking, hand winding and 42 hours power reserve. And the second hand's been tucked away in one of those little subdials. Its lack of a smoother sweep is hardly an issue, whilst it quietly ticks like an introvert at a party who's just there for the snacks. I'm genuinely excited to see where Martin goes next, especially after being impressed by their first two offerings. They're quietly carving out a niche and doing it in style. Sometimes it's good not to take yourself too seriously. To stop pretending you're an ex-SAS commando neck deep in a swamp or a minimalist monk who appreciates Bauhaus purity. And just admit you want to wear something a bit off the rails. Happy Watch is your permission slip. Unapologetically weird, vaguely unsettling and somehow still more charismatic than you'll ever be. It doesn't try to make you look successful or tasteful or like you have your life together. It just makes people look, which, let's be honest, is a first. It's not a conversation piece, it is the conversation. No soul searching, no personal growth, no learning a new cocktail to seem interesting. Just strap it on and enjoy the rare feeling of being the most memorable person in the room, for better or worse. Happy Watch is a Hong Kong-based microbrand founded in 2019 by people who clearly had enough of binary smartwatches and Seiko knockoffs pretending they'd seen action. Instead, they went full tilt into art toy territory, replacing gravitas with googly eyes and taste with technicolor chaos. But beneath all that absurdity, legit build quality. We're talking hand-polished 316L stainless steel, sapphire crystal, solid quartz movements, all for around £160. That's less than what most brands charge for a recycled design, a hollow bracelet and a photo of a guy with a beard in a Land Rover. And then comes the designs, each one a cursed Pokemon trapped in a watch. The dragon is a riot of flames and fangs with an unhinged grin. It's campy, comic book chaos that somehow still tells the time. Then there's the serpent, a golden coil of hypnotic menace, equal parts luxury, danger and cartoon villain energy. And Ginger Cat? Imagine if Hello Kitty joined a biker gang, wide-eyed, smug, slightly psychotic, it's adorable until it isn't. Each one of these faces lives in a proper case with real finishing, not some plasticky gimmick you'd win at an arcade. And they're all limited runs because, of course they are. Nothing this ludicrous should be mass-produced. You either get it or you don't, which is kinda the point. In a world where most affordable watches are doing their best impression of something safer, cooler or Swisser, Happy Watch just is what it is, weird, loud and proud of it. Like wearing a death metal band t-shirt to a funeral and somehow pulling it off. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe and I'll catch you in the next one.